When we were young, we read more often because we had to. It was the only way for us to get knowledge and to be enlightened. Read to your heart's delight and be enlightened. Let's just read. It's a podcast by Andy's Personal Development. Stay tuned for more reading and enlightenment.
So we are live on Let's Just Read, and we have a special guest to share some very intriguing and interesting information with us on this episode of Let's Just Read. This is Andy of Andy's Personal Development, and I just want to introduce our guest for a moment. To name him, his name is Frank Giammanco, and he's an author and a business consultant living in northern New Jersey. He went to West Babylon High School and completed his Bachelor of Arts degree in communication from Fordham University. And after completing his bachelor's degree, Frank Giammanco honed his skills in the publishing industry with roles in editorial, sales, and management. He blends his publishing industry experience with his writing talent to publish his first ever fantasy and fiction masterpiece entitled Lord of the Wood. And we're going to ask him to share his information with regards to that publication and all the other stuff about Frank as we welcome him into the studio. Let's just read. Welcome, Frank Giammanco. How are you today?
I'm fine, Andy. Thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. So we heard a lot about your business aspect and the things about your career from an educational perspective. But Frank, could you tell us a bit about Frank Giammanco as a young man growing up in his teen years and the direction that you were heading? What's some of the things that would have appealed to you and the lens that you saw the world in at that time?
Sure. Okay. Well, by the time I reached high school, I had well convinced myself that what I wanted to do was be a writer. Okay. And so I did writing, obviously, in high school and in college. I participated in the creation of the school periodicals, and I was also alternatively interested in the paranormal. Big Twilight Zone fan. So that approach to writing and fiction is what appealed to me. When I graduated college, as you had mentioned, I entered the publishing field in business-to-business publishing and rose up through the ranks from a junior editor to a senior editor, or executive editor, and then finally as a publisher and salesman. Then at the end of the 20th century, around 2000, I started my own business. And the business was creating B2B magazines and journals for people in the vision care field. And I'm still affiliated with that field today. And after about 17 years of owning the company called First Vision Media Group, we sold it, and I dedicated myself entirely to writing and consulting. And that brings you pretty much up to date in terms of, who I am, what made me what I am, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Frank. We really appreciate that. So let's get right to the heart of the masterpiece that you wrote. And it is entitled Lord of the Wood.
Correct.
Where did you get the inspiration for the title, Frank? Where did it come from?
It probably came from a book called The Golden Bough by James George Frazer.
Okay.
Which, if you're familiar with it, deals with myth and the occult and the spiritual.
Okay.
And so I think it was a variation on one of his phrases that created that title. And I liked it because it just seemed to fit the image of the character of Bigfoot,
Hmm.
who's principal to the story, and it kind of reflected the type of Bigfoot I created,
Ah,
which was not the brutish beast you see in a number of
yes,
horror movies,
yes.
but somebody with a little more refinement.
Mm, that's interesting because it says that you want to take the readers on a thrilling quest to search for Bigfoot.
Correct.
What do you mean by a thrilling quest? What's the direction that you want the readers to go in with this particular version of Bigfoot?
Okay. Well, there are principally in the book two groups. One is a group of folks from New York, including the book's protagonist, Sonny, who is a former business marketing person. And on the other side is another group of local investigative reporters and a cryptozoologist, and they're looking to make a documentary. And so these two groups uh, enter into the search in the Cascade Mountain Range in Oregon, outside of Eugene.
Yeah.
They never cross paths,
Hmm.
but they both encounter Bigfoot in very different and unique ways. And the Bigfoot is a prankster, and so he'll do a number of things to torment them. Not intending to hurt them, just
Yeah.
to bug them enough so that maybe they'll leave. And he does things like throws squirrels at them. And in one case, two of the guys on the broadcast side of the story are smoking a joint and in the woods, and he starts peeing on them.
Wow.
So yeah,
Wow.
so I tried to what I tried to do is I tried to inject a bit of humor
Hmm.
into something that would normally be very dramatic,
Hmm.
and go in a different direction when talking about this creature. And again, one of the reasons I selected Bigfoot is it is a conically American paranormal figure,
All right.
and I thought that just suited the story so well. And it, I, that's basically it. That's where we went.
Yeah, I like that, Frank, and thank you for sharing. It's a novel version of the phenomena, Bigfoot, and
Mhm.
I appreciate your take on it. So, Frank, here's the thing: what type of audience are you really hoping, or did you have in mind to attract with
Well,
kind of
eh,
publication?
sure. Um, Honestly, Andy, I think that the book has application to anyone who enjoys reading an adventure, a humorous piece, an intriguing and mysterious piece. Um, so it's people like that. I mean, principally, what I figured was that those others who are interested in the paranormal and the unexplained would want to delve into the story.
Okay. Yeah, sounds very interesting. Do you have any plans of taking it further? Let's say a mini series or movie or anything of that nature?
Well, actually, it's something that I'm exploring with a marketing agency that I work with out on the West Coast, um, who I think you're familiar with too.
Hmm.
And so we're going to chat about that next week, in fact, and see where it takes us.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, right now, in terms of people who make entertaining content, their market is in a little bit of a chaos
Hmm.
because, of course, the writers are on
Yes.
strike in
Yeah.
Hollywood, and
Yeah.
the actors are on strike in Hollywood. So I don't know when something like this might transpire, but
Mhm.
hopefully the story will intrigue producers enough to go in that route.
Yeah, and I think it would because there's a new twist to it, and it's really interesting. It takes the whole concept of Bigfoot down to a whole new different path and level.
Yep.
The thing about it, Frank, is in terms of book talks, do you have the opportunity to say have audiences where you can read pieces of the book or you can make some coveted speeches on the content of the book and you have an audience just lapping up the information?
Well, the book resides on Amazon,
Uh-huh.
and it's in Kindle ebook version, hardback, and soft cover. And of course, when you go on Amazon, you can sample the book. And so a number of people have obviously been doing that. Also, Kindle, as I'm sure you know, has something of a lending library function
Yeah.
called Kindle Select. And so I've been getting a lot of pickup with that. And of course, you know, selling books too.
Right. Wonderful. So you had also work done with Al Berg, Making a Difference by Al
Right.
Berg, as told by Frank Giammanco. Tell us
Yes.
a bit about that as well, Frank.
Okay. Well, that's again, that's a book that I wrote. It was a business memoir
Mm-hmm.
with you know, one of the luminaries of the vision care field, Al Berg.
Yeah.
And I'd known him for many decades,
Mm-hmm.
and approached him about writing a book on his company.
Yeah.
It started as a little company in 1983
Mm-hmm.
with a $3 million investment behind it, and they wound up selling that company for $735 million
Wow.
in 2008. And so I thought that that's a pretty compelling story.
Yes.
And so yes, so we did that together. Unfortunately, at the time I had approached Al with the idea of doing it, he had just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer,
Ooh.
and wound up never seeing the actual publication of the book. He passed away in March of 2019.
Okay. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Some things that we have to deal with in this life, harsh reality
Yes.
that some of us have no control over. But thanks for sharing, and I appreciate the passion in your voice there, Frank, when you spoke about that. In terms of your writing going forward, are there any other works that you have that you think would be a possibility in the future? Or are you just sticking with Bigfoot for now?
No, in fact, I had no intention of writing anything more about Bigfoot.
Okay.
But what I discovered was, in the process of writing the novel, a number of characters emerged. Some of them were already pre-planned, and they were based on personalities I knew in life, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But a couple of them just came out whole cloth out of my imagination.
Yeah.
And that fascinated me, the whole idea that these characters resided in the back of my brain somewhere, and then they popped up on my pages. And one of them in particular, the investigative reporter, whose name is Emerald Nemi,
Mm-hmm.
and she's a tough as nails reporter. She's you know, a little on the vulgar side,
Mm-hmm.
but very sharp and very aggressive and opportunistic. And so I'm doing another book using her now as the principal character, and moving her from Oregon to New York City, and having her go through a whole series of other paranormal events and experiences having nothing to do with Bigfoot. But I just thought she was the kind of character that she fascinates me. And so I'd like to see how she does in another venue. And so that's what's on the plate there. And I still continue to do the business memoirs. I'm doing another one with a company that was really largely a competitor of Al Berg's company.
Mm-hmm.
And the gentleman that I'm doing it with is named Harvey Ross, and his company was called Viva. And he also he started it with virtually nothing, and sold his company for $150 million in the early 2000s.
Okay.
So that's where I am.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Frank. I really appreciate it.
Okay.
Here's the thing. With regards to feedback from Into the Wood, what are you hearing?
Lord of the Wood.
Lord of the Wood, sorry. What are you hearing, people? Maybe that's a sequel. Wow. What are you hearing from your publicists, or maybe from your online experiences? What are people actually saying about the book? What are their comments that is coming back to you?
Well, I mean, those who like it, and thankfully there are more of those than dislike it. I mean, they get it. They understand the humor. They understand the sense of humanity I was trying to bring to the Bigfoot character. And they also like the fact that it's a little mysterious with a lot of twists and turns. And so it's been very, very gratifying to see that, you know, the ideas you put down on paper, people are picking up.
Yeah.
They're understanding them.
Yeah.
So,
And that's gratifying, I suppose.
oh, very, very.
Wonderful. What I would commend you for, Frank, is that you took basically a folklore sort of character and you sort of reshaped the image of him into something that I believe is much more required in our current world today with regards to how we see people, how we see life. And I think that you coined that very well with your version of Bigfoot, as opposed to what people were stereotyping in the past. And I
Right.
must commend you for that. What I'm saying is this, seeing that you've aligned yourself with this individual and given the world a new message, how deep and how far you think we are willing to really go to realize that there's a possibility that we don't have to be stereotypes, but we can also subject ourselves to change, which is so much more amenable and acceptable with regards to how we need to live together as people in this world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think you've hit on it, Andy. I mean, basically, without giving away the story on the end of the book, what the characters or principally the protagonist comes to understand is that his expectations and his suppositions are not necessarily right. And the Bigfoot even tells him, you know, the problem with you people is that you're scared of the wrong things. You're scared of me, and I'm the least scary thing in your life. And the things that should be scaring you, like pandemics and wars and violence, don't scare you.
Yes.
And you've learned to live with them. And so that's part of it. It again is you know, don't prejudge.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I think that maybe sometimes we get too caught up in the negative aspect of life so much that it really becomes the norm, Frank.
Yeah.
It's normal to have shootings. It's normal to have pandemics. It's normal to have wars. It's normal to have falling and failing economies.
Yep.
But what about the finer things in life that we can gravitate to, that we can connect ourselves with? And then when we put ourselves out there and our message out there, we give people hope. And I think you have done that in a very strange but dynamic way with regards to Bigfoot. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. Yeah, I think again, I think you've hit on it. What I wanted the Bigfoot character to convey is this sense of optimism and hope.
Yes.
And again, what he imparts to the protagonist is that, you know, leave all the presuppositions behind. You know, go with the day, seize the day.
Yeah.
And that becomes the theme of the book.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you for sharing, Frank.
Of course.
So you're currently providing consulting services to a number of companies. So you're involved in business planning, marketing strategies, social media,
Yep.
and content development. Is that something that you do part-time or full-time as well?
It's kind of catch as catch can.
Okay.
I have a couple of regular clients that I work with, but it's on an as need basis, and so it's kind of a precarious way to make a living, but you know, it's been satisfying, and it keeps me kind of grounded in the field that I'd spent 40 years in.
Yeah.
You know, and in the meantime, it also kind of finances things like Lord of the Wood. So.
I hear you. I hear you. So, all right. So, Lord of the Wood is considered as a fiction masterpiece. But do you enjoy any other kind of writing, any other genre of writing? And if so, who do you follow as a writer?
Okay. Well, most of the work that I do, particularly for clients, is really sort of what you would call informational or essay writing. And they principally use this content on their websites, or they'll email it out and so on and so forth. Um, but again, I mean, my real love is in the fiction. Big Hemingway fan, uh,
Yes.
big Kurt Vonnegut fan.
Okay.
And if you take the two of them, put them together, you to some degree get what I was trying to achieve with Lord of the Wood.
Out of the word. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I appreciate that. Thanks for sharing, Frank. Now, in terms of the work that you do, are there any areas where you can share this with, let's say, high school students, or maybe a youth group supported by a non-governmental agency? Sometimes we have people that we can mentor in these areas, and we can
mhm.
share the message with them, and they can learn and develop their characters as individuals, prepare them better for life ahead. Are you involved in any work like that, Frank?
I'm not at this juncture. I would certainly like to be. I would
Mhm.
like to be able to impart
Yeah.
to students and emerging writers what you should be thinking about, how
Okay.
you should be perceiving the work, and how the work comes to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Wonderful. Thanks for sharing. Are you appreciative of editorial work being done by all the magazines? The reason why I'm asking you this, Frank, is because sometimes you read a piece, and I saw an article this morning where someone is saying we are seeing so much of Chat GPT
Mhm.
instead of the bold aspect of raw creativity. Are you concerned about that as well, Frank, when you look into articles and editorial pieces? What are you seeing happening with regards to the evolution of AI technology?
Well, that's a concern, I think.
Uh-huh.
I mean, it's particularly a concern for writers,
Right.
and I know now Amazon has come down with a new mandate where they said if you're creating content
Hmm.
through AI and attempting to sell it, excuse me,
Sure.
sell it on Amazon,
Uh-huh.
then we're going to decline it.
Wow.
We don't want AI content. We want the content you as a human create.
Hmm. So here's the thing, Frank. How can we get folks to realize that the basic foundation of creativity, writing from the heart, writing from the soul, like soul food, let me put it
No,
that way, is extremely important and still needed and is still viable? What can we say to them, Frank?
um, all I could say would be you have to try it. You have to venture into it, and give it a chance.
Hmm.
I used to have this metaphor
Yeah.
running through my head when I had started writing, that I had jumped into an icy pond, and
Hmm.
I swim out halfway, realize that, geez, I can't swim. What am I doing? And I swim back.
Wow.
So, in point of fact, I mean,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
sort of deceived myself,
Hmm.
but that became sort of the metaphor for how a lot of people look at the challenges of life and of creative work. Oh, I can't do that, but I'm halfway in the middle of it. So,
Yeah. I get it. I call it a mentor. But that one person you turn to when you have to make big decisions, and they keep you grounded, more or less. That still voice that helps you make good decisions.
so you're talking about an inner voice. You're freezing again.
Wow. Okay, go ahead and answer the question. That is only
Well,
coming from my side.
well, what I had asked you when you froze is, are you talking about an inner voice?
To a certain extent, but there's always somebody, a human person that we turn to when we need to make big decisions or even small ones.
Right.
And we call that person either a coach or a mentor, or maybe a consultant. Do you have that
Right.
person in your life?
Well, I would say it's more like a partner, and
Yeah.
in the sense that, I think that one of my guiding lights is my wife, who is very pragmatic and very down to earth and grounded. She has all the skills I do not have.
Okay.
She's much more mathematically oriented than I am. So we're opposites in many ways, and yet she has the ability to provide good grounded advice,
Right. Yeah.
and usually she's right. So
Most important.
yeah.
All right. Thank you for sharing, Frank. Yeah. So, are there any last words that you would like to say with regards to the publication, in terms of what you want the world to really hear that you are saying through that particular book?
Well, I think we've covered it pretty well.
Yeah.
Again, one of the recurring themes throughout the book is encased in the expression "enjoy your life," and ultimately, the protagonist comes to understand, because he's usually the target of this mantra, but he comes to understand that he hasn't been enjoying his life, and now he has an opportunity to do so.
Okay, great. So let's just have a little bit of relaxation for a moment, if you don't mind.
Of course.
I'll ask you 3 questions and you can tell me one or the other. There's 2
Okay.
choices, and you can tell me why you pick one or the other. This is concerning food. The first one is concerning food.
Food?
But yeah, would it be peanut butter and jelly or ham and cheese?
Peanut butter and jelly.
Why would that be your choice?
It's a comfort food.
Ah,
And in fact, it's funny because, again, in the book, the protagonist, at one juncture, he comes home and it's late in the evening and he's living alone, and he makes himself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a glass of milk.
there you go. There you go. Wow.
So
that's interesting. Okay.
10, 12 seconds.
So you said baseball.
Yes, I did.
Okay, why baseball, Frank?
It's just it's always been a passion of mine. I'm a New Yorker by background, really, and so my team, and I almost hate to admit it, is the Mets. But I grew up on Long Island at the time when the Dodgers and the Giants left New York.
Yeah.
And then in the early 60s, the Mets came on the scene.
Yeah.
And so I've always been a Mets fan.
Okay, great. Finally.
Yes, sir.
You're into publication and media stuff and that kind of thing. There are 2 large companies. Between Apple and Google, which one would you choose?
Choose for what?
In terms of the platform that you would use to do your stuff, your publications, your media platforms and so on, which one is more amenable or better for you?
My inclination would be to move toward Google. I think Google is a little bit more of a diversified company. But I mean, they're both behemoths.
Okay, great. So we are having some trouble with the Wi-Fi.
We're having a lot of trouble. You're gonna have a lot of editing on your hands.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna give you a minute.
No.
Minute quickly for you to. You heard the last part I said?
No, I did not.
Yeah. I said, let's just take a quick minute and give them the information how they can get your publication and your professional services.
All right. The book is available on Amazon, on the Amazon platform, as a Kindle ebook, as a hardcover and a soft cover. I'm going to have an audio book added to the mix very imminently. And if they would like more information about the book or to communicate with me, there is a website. It's Frank Giammanco, GIAMMANCO.com. And they'll be able to read up on the book, order the book if they choose, and certainly use it as a conduit to communicating with me.
Okay, thank you for sharing, and thank you for being with us on Let's Just Read. Remember, folks, continue to read so that you have more enlightenment and more information about the things that matter in life. And go on Amazon and check out Frank Giammanco's Lord of the Wood. We thank you so much for being a
Thank you, Andy. I appreciate being here.
guest with us, Frank.